Things are not looking good for Lil Durk, y'all. Things are not looking good at all. For those of you who have not been paying attention or who do not know exactly who he is, Lil Durk is the most famous rapper out of Chicago of this current generation, and he is currently dealing with a very, very, very serious predicament. They have this man in charges of murder for hire, and this all traces back to this whole beef that he's had with this nigga Quando Rondo and NBA Youngboy and that whole camp. That all leads back to King Von and his decision to get into it with some niggas over a woman. But I'm not going to spend too much time breaking all that down. How are we all doing? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. and Lady viewing at home, it's your boy Germ, it's Kinetic Aesthetic. And if you can't tell already, today we're going to be having a little bit of discussion about this ongoing Lil Durk trial. Now, like I said, I've pretty much given you the whole gist and the background of everything that led up to the incident that resulted in him getting arrested. He is accused of hiring some people to go out, who flew out to California. They were aiming to kill Quando Rondo, but instead they got his cousin who went by the name of Lil Pab. And pretty much ever since then, it was already, the day it happened, it was pretty much speculated about how that was something that was sent from Von and from Durk and his camp, and that, he was behind it. You have to understand, this is back when, immediately after the death of Von, you had so many people, not just fans, but you had motherfucking figures in the industry like 6ix9ine and all these other ignorant motherfuckers spamming Lil Durk's comments, spamming Lil Durk in all these different types of ways of just slide for Von, do this for Von, slide for Von, get back for Von. And as we can all see, whether or not that played the deciding role, it played a role nonetheless in Lil Durk making a whole bunch of dumbass decisions that have all led him to being right here. And whether or not you believe that he was the one who was responsible for that hit being sent, the simple fact that he entertained the idea that he was behind it, that he was in his raps doing all of this like boasting and posturing about how he was the one who was behind this, how he'd do this and that, how he had the streets on lock and everything. All of it just is exactly what led to him being in this position and in this situation that he's in now. And as we're going to get into, it's why I find it very, very hard to find any type of sympathy with this nigga. I've had this discussion with people in my real life. I've had motherfuckers try to tell me how he does so much for his people, how he puts them on, and how he does this and that. And listen, as I'm going to get into, I respect all of that. I do understand that it's important for a man like him who has that position to, do what he can for his people, put on, try to keep them in position of, of at least being able to maintain or thrive. How dumb is it that he decided to jeopardize everything that he had going, everything that he had built with himself as the breadwinner off of some petty ass revenge that he couldn't even shut up about? But before we get there, we are going to, of course, start at the beginning of this beef. And like I said, it all goes back to a nigga who's not even around anymore. I'm talking about Von. Now, everything that I've ever remembered about this beef, because I actually remember like literally reading headlines and watching stuff about it as it was happening in real time. And it was the pettiest shit, because this wasn't about any type of real animosity between these two. Von had already shown himself to be a fan of NBA Youngboy. He had shown himself listening to his music, recording stuff. Durk and Youngboy had been on IG Live together, or whatever the fuck it was they were doing. These people were not necessarily friends, but they were cordial. There was not hate. NBA Youngboy is somebody who has been very open, or you can very clearly tell that he was heavily influenced by Chief Keef and probably Lil Durk as he was coming up out of Baton Rouge. So the beef that they had, for it to pop off the way it did, was already a little disappointing. But what makes it even worse is that this was all over, at the end of the day, just women. What it started off, I think, was that Von had wanted a feature from Youngboy or something like that, which he turned down. And Von deciding instead to just take it on the chin and just move on, he decided to start trolling the nigga. He trolled the nigga, and eventually that led to him having some pictures taken with his baby mama, some woman named Janiyah. And After that, that was when it really sort of became a thing and it became an issue. Quando Rondo started getting involved. You know, you had niggas threatening him, and all of a sudden, it just became this little Cold War or silent tension where there's clearly serious beef there, where they're trolling each other, doing all this stuff on the internet, but it had yet to really like escalate. Now, of course, we already know how it all plays out. They end up at some hookah lounge on, I believe it was Von's birthday. He gets into it with Quando, sees him, starts punching on him. His mans pulls out Lil Tim and just shoots him in his shit. And it was at that moment that instead of this just being the thing where Von would die, where cooler heads would prevail, it just became some very dumb, very stupid, highly public beef between these two big prominent camps. You got some niggas from Chicago and you got niggas that are all the way in Louisiana. And despite all of those hundreds of miles of difference, despite the fact that this is two different damn near like subcultures, these niggas really started trying to make this shit an issue. You had people from Durk's side going over into their side shooting videos. You got a whole bunch of online threats and shit like that. I don't remember Quando Rondo doing much for his part outside of just trying to, you know, I didn't want that to happen and everything like that. But even then, you got him shooting videos with a Durk lookalike in it, like shooting him up and everything like that. And it just was very, very clear that this was just going to turn into a nigga moment that had no real way of diffusion, of like making it stop. And so we get to the point where, as I told you already, you've got Durk having his comments spammed with a whole bunch of slides for Durk shit. And hold on one second, I want to make sure I have this shit right, because it was August 2022. That was the day that it happened, August 19th. That was when Quando Rondo and his cousin Lil Pab were at a gas station in LA. Somebody pulled up, shots were let off, and Lil Pab was shot dead. There's the video of it, of him having his reaction. It's actually fucking horrible and sad. But that was the moment where everything, I feel like, for Durk just went south. Because there was a moment where, and this is something I'm going to get into, something that I've always really noticed. When you are involved in your little local street politics and you beefing like that, to be quite honest with you, the police tend not to care. You know, I don't know how it is in a city like, you know, Miami. I don't know how it is in places like Florida or some of these other states where they have different types of laws. But in Chicago, as far as I've been able to tell, as long as I can remember, when you die in certain areas, if you fit the description, even if you are not really involved in shit, if you are a black man like me and you die in a certain area of Chicago, they are not going to really give a fuck. I want to be completely clear about what I'm saying. In certain parts of Chicago, if you walk around and you are just living your life out there and you happen to die, you get killed, your life does not matter to the police. Black lives do not matter. I'm being intentional when I say that. And I say that to say, there's a very specific reason that when FBG Duck, another prominent Chicago rapper, very public death, this nigga died in the Gold Coast. It was only because he died in the Gold Coast, around all those shops, around where all these white people like to congregate and chill at and live and go shop, which is why his murder was solved, which is why you have people actually responsible for that shit behind bars. They do not care. They do not give a fuck if you kill somebody in Inglewood, if you kill somebody in Garfield Park, if you kill somebody in Hyde Park. They do not give a damn. If you die in the wild hundreds, you get shot down to your death. They don't give a fuck. And so I got to make that perfectly clear, because that's the beginning of where Durk and where I think a lot of these niggas are starting to make mistakes, is that they start to believe that just because they've been able to get away with so much nonsense, with so much destruction in Chicago, in their own cities, that when they start traveling to other places and starting to do shit, that's when they get themselves caught up and they start having to face the real brunt of the law. Say all that to say, that Lil Pab death is what got the feds involved. That is what got motherfuckers to really start paying attention to the beef, and that's what got law enforcement on his ass. And it wasn't just the fact that you are taking this beat that started off as just, some real fucked up shit. This is real just industry shit, and you've turned it into a interstate fucking like gang war. Now you have yourself doing songs, rapping about it, trying to take credit, trying to let motherfuckers know, hey, stop trying to clown on me saying all that Sly Ravon shit. It's been done. And this is where I really have to have an issue with Durk, where I really just start to lose my sympathy, because, and this is the thing about it. I had this conversation with niggas in my life, with niggas that I'm close to. And the most disappointing and the most like asinine thing that happened to me during this conversation was when I brought this up. How his biggest mistake was rapping about it, was how it was trying to take credit for it. Niggas tried to say that he had to do that. Niggas tried to tell me with straight faces that that was necessary for him to do so. And that is where you lose me with the whole street shit, with anything revolving around it. Because there's no instance, there's no point in time where you are going to tell me that this is a smart idea for a nigga who commits crimes, who does all of these things, to start having to brag about it and take credit. For what reason? I've never got a good reason when it came to that. But that's the point. There's no good fucking reason for you to be doing that. Whether you believe that Durk had to stand for his homeboy, or whether he had to get back and do any of that, at what point is it part of the game for you to have to go out on public, on wax, and start trying to just take credit for shit? At what point are you making songs that are now being used against you in court? They're literally trying to use some song this nigga made called "You Done Pissed Me Off" or something in his trial. And that is why I say it, and I'll say it again. What the fuck is the point of trying to brag about crimes on wax? At what point in history did it become part of the game that you had to take credit for the dirt that you do? At what point was it necessary for a nigga who has all of this shit to lose to think that it's a good idea for him to be putting his name to shit? For him to be doing all of this goofy shit? Lil Durk is somebody whose father spent decades in prison because he was the head of his gang, because he was the one in charge. He was a shot caller. So for him to literally get out, and then in the couple years of you being out, your son is going right in because he was doing the same dumb shit that you were doing when you were young. You cannot make this shit up. You cannot really contemplate in your head the level of ignorance and the level of stupidity that you're dealing with right here. And I hate that Durk is in prison. I hate that he isn't going to be able to provide for his family or hold shit down. And you know what? If I'm being completely honest, I understand from a human perspective the idea of wanting to get back for your homie after they got killed, if they got taken away from you. Especially when you have a nigga like Youngboy coming out and making songs months removed after the fact trying to troll you about it. But again, why are you thinking that it's a smart idea to start beefing with niggas publicly? You doing IG posts where you niggas like spelling shit out in money, talking about all you niggas gonna die, hurry y'all ass up. Who is that for other than the fucking feds? Who? Who benefits from knowing what y'all got going on? Who benefits from knowing what y'all have happening in the streets? Except niggas who are trying to put you behind bars. There's a certain point in the community around niggas where it started to become cool, acceptable, and damn near encouraged to be fucking stupid on the internet. As if nobody checks this shit. As if nobody is getting online and actually listening to your music. As if they're not niggas who are dedicated to going online, looking at your posts, trying to figure out what illegal shit or what bad shit you're up to so they can put you behind bars so that you can be making another nigga money when it comes to private prisons. This isn't even about fucking just Lil Durk right now, because we still have a whole nother case relating to fucking Tupac, where the nigga who was apparently in the car that shot him, nigga by the name of Keefe D, he's in prison right now on trial for this murder because he wouldn't shut the fuck up and stop going on Vlad TV interviews. This nigga going on Vlad, spilling all the beans on the case, telling all the details. Nigga, that was his nephew, Baby Lane, who was in the car. He knew this and that. He's going over all this shit about how he was knowing Diddy, about how he was involved in this and that. You got the fucking recording interviews of him just giving confessions. It's a whole bunch of just shit that you don't need to say, that you don't need to do. And again, I'm happy that he did it. Criminals, he's a dumbass criminal. He's he's being brought to justice. Nigga, I'm happy that Tupac's family and his estate is finally gonna be able to get some type of peace and closure. But the human element, the human part of me that just understands, how shit can happen, how things can just sort of go down. Why is it that you felt the need to go, what, does Vlad even pay niggas for interviews? I did not do my research before that when it comes to Vlad, so I don't know. Maybe he does. But what made it worth it for you to go out there and just talk about how you killed this one of the most famous motherfuckers on the planet and think that you weren't going to have any type of repercussions? But, the more I think about it right now, the more I am sort of starting to just come to the realization that might just be a symptom of the times right now. We are living in an age right now where, as crazy as it is, because I've heard it before, but I've never really been able to really contemplate or quantify how deep this shit goes. Clout is the most important thing to a lot of people. Clout, respect, your reputation, that's more important to you than your freedom. That's more important to a lot of motherfuckers than logically thinking. That's more important than anything in the world. Because you've got this nigga Keefy D, who is only on trial for Tupac's murder because he couldn't shut the fuck up and stop doing Vlad TV interviews. You've got Durk, who, in all honesty, if he would have just shut the fuck up, never did anything, tried to completely distance himself from that case, would have probably been fine. Like, judging based off the shit that they're trying to use in his case, if you would have not been trying to make songs about this shit and just move completely different, you'd be good. All that I'm trying to give money back to the kids and I'm trying to get good in with the city of Chicago, all of that doesn't work if you're still making songs talking about how you're putting bags on niggas' heads and about how you are this and that. It just does not fucking work. And then you've got, and this is the very extreme sort of like, we're taking a left turn here. You've got real extreme cases like a guy like EDP 445. For those of you who are not familiar with who he is, I'm going to give you a very short little spark notes. He has a documentary on YouTube. If you unfortunately want to know more after I describe this nigga to you, that's on you. I'm not going to recommend the documentary because it is intense. EDP 445 is a internet personality who, this nigga was huge in like football commentary. He was like the most famous Philadelphia Eagles fan on the internet. And he was just famous because he was big, fat, and he was one of those people that would just be quick to rant and rave and like do a whole bunch of, entertaining shit while he was recording. As it turns out, he was also a fat fucking loser incel who was a pedophile, who has been trying to talk to, like, groom and just basically fuck a whole bunch of underage girls. And just, he's publicly and he's blatant about it. He does not care. He does not try to sugarcoat it. The whole point of this documentary is him just being blunt and upfront about how much of a disgusting, just shitty motherfucker he is. Like, he was being interviewed by Chris Hansen and just was not taking the shit seriously at all. It's actually fucking crazy. But we're at a point now where people are willing to go out there and expose themselves on the most heinous shit. They don't really care. They don't really give a damn about the repercussions of it. It's all about just getting that reaction. People would much rather just be known as this despicable, deplorable motherfucker because it's going to get them some type of, just any type of reaction, any type of, just recognition, because that's what's important to everybody. And I don't know how you do to fix people like this. I don't know how you help people who have this type of mindset. I don't think Durk is as far gone as EDP 445, especially when it comes to like the actual level of crime he's willing to commit. But he suffers from the same issue. Because if he would have just been able to keep his mouth shut, keep your head down, Just be known as being a rapper, you know? You don't gotta be the most gangster nigga out on the block, on the industry. You just needed to be a good rapper, which he always was. Durk didn't need to throw his career away the way he has. He didn't need to do any of this goofy shit. He didn't need to be in this position. The worst part about this is that he's beefing with a nigga NBA Youngboy, who the more time goes on, the more I'm damn near inclined to believe he might have some type of working relationship with the police because of the way that he continues to find himself in crazy situations, in running in high speed chases with the police, where this nigga has to get caught up, running fucking prescription drug like rings and everything like that, and somehow he is still, after every charge, after every prison stint, he gets out and he is able to go back and resume his career. He's got great lawyers, no doubt about that, but this nigga has had so many second chances you would think it's ridiculous. And the other part about it is, most niggas that end up being with him end up getting arrested. They end up getting booked. And as much as I would love to maybe just say, you know, maybe he does have that relationship, I also have to start to come to the realization, a lot of the niggas that he beefs with are fucking stupid. They're dumb and they don't know how to move. It ends up costing him. And that is why I don't feel that much sympathy for Durk. I don't feel that much sorrow for this man, aside from when it comes to his family. Because you had so many opportunities, you had so many different moments where it should have been, hey, let me slow the fuck down. Let me just chill the fuck out. You had every opportunity to be the biggest rapper to ever come out of Chicago. I know it's crazy to say because we've got Kanye West, but Durk had that potential. Durk was showing himself to be willing to make those type of moves. This is a nigga who knew how to move throughout the industry. There was a reason why, when he was having that beef with Youngboy, that all these niggas was on his side, where I felt like Youngboy was not being remembered, because Durk is so good at playing politics to where he had the industry fucking with him instead of fucking with Youngboy. And now that he's in prison again, you see all these motherfuckers coming out trying to act nice, trying to do all this other shit. It just shows you that all of that hard work, all of that, you know, energy he put towards, you know, cultivating the industry, working in his favor, all that shit went by the wayside. Because when you're in jail, when you're in prison, ain't shit else. There's nothing that you can really do. Niggas aren't trying to be worried about how you gonna feel about something because they think that you're gonna be in jail for the rest of your life. Niggas are counting you out. So I feel bad for Durk, but I don't feel empathy for him. I don't feel sorrow, because this was something that he had a choice. He had the control. He had the option to move smarter, to move with more wisdom, and he chose not to. He let his emotions get the best of him. He let his anger get the best of him. Whether it was a result of him reading all of those Slide Ravon comments, whether it was just the guilt or the anger of losing somebody who was a close friend to him, he let that shit make him cost himself his position. And as much as I feel for all the people that are going to be affected by him losing that position, I feel no sympathy for the man himself. There is so much more to talk about when it comes to this case. It's still going on as I record this, so there's no real... As much as I'm saying this, he could still be found innocent, although I highly, highly doubt it. When he has two people who were close to him, who are in videos with him, who are with him when he was moving on his day-to-day in OTF Jam and OTF Vonnie, who are confirmed to be prosecution witnesses, I just don't like his odds. I don't like how things are looking for him, and unfortunately, we may be close to seeing the end of him. But all I can recommend to anybody that's a fan of Lil Durk, that's just a fan of, you know, niggas not being fucked for the rest of their life, say a prayer for that man. And even if you don't necessarily care for him, just say a prayer for his family, because he's got multiple kids. He's got a lot of people that were out here depending on him. And the one thing that I would hate to have to see or have happen is for any of those kids or any of the people that was really fucking with him or really on his side to end up just stuck back in Chicago with no real options to ever maneuver outside of, because that's hell. But this has been Kinetic Aesthetic. This has been your boy Germ. I just wanted to come and rap with y'all about this Lil Durk trial right quick, because it's it's one that I'm paying attention to closely because it's just got a lot going on. And it's going to say a lot about how this whole hip hop police narrative of this year is going to play out. Because as I touched on already, it's not just Lil Durk. There's a lot of guys who have been doing a lot of silly moves or moving in a lot of silly ways, and it's now potentially starting to catch back up to them. But it could also have a lot of ramifications going forward for what it means to be a rapper, what it means to, be talking and telling your story in the world of hip hop. So make sure y'all pay attention to it. You already know, once we hear a verdict, once anything more interesting happens and comes up, we're going to start to talk about it again. But once again, and lastly, if you haven't already, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, do whatever you have to do so that you are up to date on whatever shit that we drop for Kinetic Aesthetic. Make sure you hype the video if it is on YouTube, because that makes a huge difference in the algorithm. And above all else, make sure you continue to be wonderful and great people, because I love you. And Kinetic Aesthetic is not Kinetic Aesthetic without you.